Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, I always hate to say it. I really do, because every time I hear someone else say it, I don't like to hear it. But I got to say it, so forgive me. I told you so, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse until we confront the root of the problem. And as I said, left-wing terrorism, this Democrat-inspired culture of hatred and political violence, is like a cancer that continues to metastasize. And yesterday, it claimed lives in Dallas at the Dallas ICE facility. So here is now exactly what is taking place. While the nation is still mourning the death of Charlie Kirk, still trying to process the death of Charlie Kirk, a 29-year-old man, an anti-ICE leftist, Joshua John, went on a rooftop, almost identical to Tyler Robinson, and then now, according to law enforcement, media, and FBI sources and outlets, apparently, and multiple witnesses, he then began to wildly fire shot after shot after shot against the detention facility at that area in Dallas for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. He shot up the building. He shot up the wall. He shot up the windows. Apparently, bullets penetrated all the way into the lobby. This was at about 6:40 a.m. He then spotted a van, and thinking that it was full of ICE agents, began to shoot up the van. It was shot after shot after shot after shot. Initially, it was reported that 2 illegal aliens who were being transferred into that detention facility had been killed. The FBI now has revised that number. 1 illegal alien, so-called migrant, was killed. 2 others critically injured. They are apparently in stable condition, fighting for their lives at a local hospital. By the grace of God, no law enforcement officers, no ICE agents were killed. However, police later in a press conference said it was literally by sheer luck. There were ICE agents in that van, and had the bullets gone just a fraction of a centimeter in a different direction, you would have been seeing now dead ICE agents on top of these dead illegal aliens. His intention was obvious. It was to kill ICE agents and anyone who works at the so-called ICE detention facility in order to free these illegals. Instead, the illegals ended up being collateral damage, as it's called, in this sick man's rampage against federal law enforcement and against ICE. Apparently now, FBI agents, and Kash Patel even posted a picture, found bullet casings that were not unspent bullet casings, that in which anti-ICE messages were engraved, very similar to Tyler Robinson, if you remember, who didn't engrave anti-ICE messages, but engraved his bullets with pro-transgender and Antifa slogans. One of the bullets just read, quote-unquote, anti-ICE. Listen now to the FBI's special agent in charge of the Dallas field office, FBI agent Joe Rothrock, saying this is now clearly an act of targeted violence. And he's now saying, and the FBI is saying it, ICE is saying it, federal law enforcement is saying it, everybody with half a brain is saying it. This is a part of a pattern in which Democrat politicians, led by Gavin Newsom, led by Jasmine Crockett, led by Tim Walz, led by, yes, Boston's Mayor Michelle Wu have engaged in a systematic vilification, villainization campaign against ICE and against ICE agents, that now their inflammatory, incendiary, false, lying, mendacious rhetoric, comparing ICE agents literally to the Nazis, to the modern-day Gestapo, to slave patrols, to Donald Trump's private domestic army, imposing a military dictatorship and authoritarian rule. That's exactly what Gavin Newsom said just the night before the shooting when he appeared on Stephen Colbert's show. This kind of constant vilification around the clock, nonstop, by Democrats, by the media, by liberals, by so-called progressives, has now put a target on the back of every single ICE agent, every single federal law enforcement agent, and they are dropping like flies. Just over the last couple of months alone, in the Dallas area, the North Texas area, just there have been 3 coordinated attacks on ICE detention facilities. On July 4th, and remember we talked about it on this show, an anti-ICE leftist madman, inspired by this hateful rhetoric, this violent rhetoric, ambushed ICE agents and shot up a detention facility. Not there, it was a different location, but that was in Prairieland. Another ICE detention facility just a couple of months later. An individual walked in claiming he had a bomb and he wanted to blow the whole building up to kill and take down the modern-day Gestapo and Nazis. Across the country, in fact, just last weekend, anti-ICE Antifa protesters, Democrat politicians, blocked ICE, prevented them from engaging in raids, arresting, I'm talking wanted murderers, child molesters, gangbangers, sex traffickers, drug traffickers, in which rocks were thrown at ICE agents. ICE agents were beaten and assaulted, their cars pelted with rocks, many of them threatening death threats, saying, "Take off your mask, we'll kill you and your family." This is now the climate of terror that has been unleashed by the Democrats and their allies in the media. Listen now to FBI agent Joe Rothrock, again, special agent in charge of the Dallas field office, saying, "I can confirm this was an act of targeted violence, and it's only getting worse." Roll cut 1, Mike.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence, to include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack.
Look, we are, first of all, just to be very clear, do I want illegal aliens deported? Of course. But they don't deserve to get shot in the head. I'm not for executions. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I'm serious. I don't cheer when somebody dies, when somebody's executed or assassinated. They are human beings. They have families. I just don't want them in our country because they have no right to be here and they shouldn't be here, especially these violent criminals. But today, and it was only by sheer luck, it was 3 migrants that were one killed and 2 badly wounded. It was a slaughter. It was a bloodbath. But I'm telling you, this easily could have been 3 dead ICE agents, or God knows many more, or people who worked inside that building as he shot up window after window. And so, again, I have to ask all of you, how much is enough? How much as a country, as a society, as a culture are we willing to take? And when are we going to start holding Democrat politicians and Democrat leaders accountable for their words, for their hateful, violent rhetoric, which, by the way, is deliberate. It's deliberate. They're deliberately inciting violence. When Jasmine Crockett, for example, compares ICE agents to quote-unquote the slave patrols, as she did recently, she's basically ordering a hit, saying, kill them. That's what you do to people who are slave patrols. And this is what the Democrats are doing again and again and again and again. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, what is now interesting about the developments now taking place is that it appears that the FBI, without actually saying it, but they're clearly implying it, that they don't believe that the shooter, Joshua John, did this completely on his own. Listen now to FBI agent Joe Rothrock. Again, he's a special agent in charge. Now, remember, at this point, they have found that, they found the shooter. He committed suicide. He shot up that building, attacked the van, and as law enforcement was closing in on him, he, like many of them, took the cowardly way out and apparently killed himself with a self-inflicted gun wound. So they had the body. They had his dead body. They even found the anti-ICE messages on the unspent bullet casings. But listen to what FBI agent Joe Rothrock says. Roll cut 1A, a mic.
This will be a whole of government response. There will be no resource not utilized to bring all those individuals who are responsible to bring them to justice and to hold them accountable. While we're not releasing identities of any victims at this time, what I can confirm for you is no members of law enforcement were hurt during this attack.
Thank the Lord. That to me is the silver lining in all this. Okay? Thank the Lord. But notice, you've got the shooter. So, A, why would you need a whole of government response? And, notice he said, we're going to use all these, resources. We're going to leave no stone unturned to bring all those individuals responsible to justice and to hold them accountable. So clearly the FBI has some kind of evidence or some kind of strong sense or feeling that he didn't act alone. And frankly, again, it doesn't pass the smell test. That this kid, who apparently, I'm just going now by what his family is saying, he was not a skilled marksman. He knew how to use his parents' rifle, but apparently he was no big skilled marksman or a great shooter, and you could see that. I mean, he was just shooting wildly. He literally just picked up a gun and just shot wildly. He shot at the building, he shot at the windows, he shot at the van, he just shot he was just spraying bullets. But, that this guy executed this completely on his own, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I'll tell you right now, this has the smell of Antifa. Just like Tyler Robinson, the smell of Antifa. Now, I don't know if this Joshua John or whatever was in the process of transitioning or whatever, was a transgender person. I don't know. There is no evidence to show that right now. What we do know is he, just from the statements that have been shown now and exposed on social media, his mother, the shooter's mother, is a hardcore moonbat. I mean, I'm talking a hard leftist, a ferocious, partisan, rabid Democrat who reviles Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Senator Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, any Republican. I mean, just, it is one vicious post after another, demonizing and attacking Republicans. And apparently the NRA and the gun lobby and how she hates guns and how, according to her, this was a post just a couple years ago, how guns are responsible for all of these school shootings and guns are responsible for all this violence. Lady, you should have been looking closer to home. Instead of attacking Republicans and the Second Amendment, you should have been looking after your son. Because he's the one that pulled the trigger, not Ted Cruz, and not Greg Abbott, and not Donald Trump, and not supporters of the Second Amendment, not conservatives. So on this one, honestly, you don't have to even look very far. Where was the son radicalized? In the home. Now, we're getting a picture of this shooter, which is very typical. Serious mental health issues. Family doesn't want to elaborate, but clearly there were problems. Hard time holding down a job. Apparently he worked at some kind of a renewable energy resource company, but he was in and out of jobs. Couldn't really find his way. Apparently spent a lot of his time living at home with his parents. Now remember, he's pushing 30. He's 29 years old, or at least he was pushing 30. So he's 29 years old, and I don't know if he was living with his parents full time, but he was often at his parents' home. And he spent periods living under the roof of his parents and had a hard time holding down a job. And I'm telling you, you're going to find out it's Antifa. Now, just so that you know, President Trump now has not just designated Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, but yesterday, almost in the wake of this shooting, he now has ordered that Antifa be completely and utterly dismantled, and that all of their supporters, donors, and funders be prosecuted as well. It's about time. Seriously, it's about time. And so my question to you, was this another act of left-wing domestic terrorism? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Kuhner Country, I want to go to the phone lines. Let me ask all of you, what do you make now of the mass shooting yesterday at the Dallas ICE facility by an anti-ICE leftist? Are you worried now that political violence is getting out of control? It seems now it's almost like every day there's some other act of violence or terrorism committed by some Democrat or far leftist. And do you believe that the inflammatory, incendiary, frankly absurd rhetoric comparing ICE, as I said, to the Gestapo, to Nazis, to the slave patrols, is this now creating a climate of violence and a climate of vilification against ICE that is leading now to these constant attacks? Are Democrat politicians, and is there hateful rhetoric to blame, or at least partially to blame, for this epidemic now of violence against federal law enforcement, ICE agents, frankly now conservatives in general? 617-266-6868. Chris in Berkeley, you're going to kick us off, Chris. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. When is enough going to be enough? We can't play nice with these people. Trump cannot play nice with these people. He needs to become a cold, heartless man and go after everyone. They went after him. They tried to throw him in jail for life. They tried to take his life away from him multiple times. And just like you say, they play tackle football, we play badminton. He really needs to do something, because people aren't going to take any more of this. And they're going to start taking it into their own hands and, God forbid, a civil war. He needs to do something. I voted for Trump twice, and to be honest, this time around, I'm not too pleased with what he's doing.
Chris, what would you like him to do specifically that he's not doing right now?
I mean, it's taken him this long to go after Antifa. I mean, he needs to go after everyone that went after him. They did not care about him. He needs to not care about the left, because we are playing nice, and look at what's going on. We are all Charlie Kirk. Now we all have a bullseye on our backs.
Chris, I couldn't have said it better myself, really. Chris, thank you very much for that call. No, like, this is the part that it's mind-boggling. Even in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, even in the wake, and we're seeing it now in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Boston, you're seeing it now in cities all around the country. The organized violence against ICE, they're ambushing ICE agents. They're attacking them, throwing rocks at them, blocking them, preventing them, throwing tear gas at them, from executing arrest warrants. I mean, when I say they're coddling criminals, they're literally coddling murderers, rapists, child molesters, drug dealers, sex traffickers. That's who they're going after. And you see this organized campaign of resistance against ICE, which is now erupting in violence. And ICE agents are saying, we're getting shot. We're getting beaten. We're getting assaulted. Our cars are being pelted with rocks. Our lives are in jeopardy. And the Democrats don't miss a beat. The Hitler, Nazi, fascist, white supremacist, slavery, Gestapo, it just doesn't end. And they know what their words are leading to. They know it. And this is, to me, the scariest thing of all. I think it's deliberate. I really do. I think these people, this is a deliberate attempt, but they know what their words, look, let me phrase it this way. They know the dangerous lunatics. There are a lot of unhinged people in Antifa, in Black Lives Matter, among the transgender community. Okay? Now, you start pumping this kind of vile, violent, hateful rhetoric, this kind of incendiary, inflammatory, false rhetoric. We're not living in Hitler's Germany. If you think so, you're crazy. Remember, ICE is just enforcing the federal law. That's all they're doing. They're law enforcement enforcing the law. I mean, what? We don't want them to go after murderers? We don't want them to go after gangbangers? Well, we don't want them to go after drug dealers and sex traffickers? No. Like what? We want to legalize this? We want to decriminalize this in the United States? We want them roaming in our cities and our streets? Did we like that? We want that? That's all they are. They're just a branch of federal law enforcement. That's it. But they're making them into something that they're not. They're literally trying to turn them into evil incarnate. And when you keep saying this, what you're doing, there are unhinged people, Bills in Sudbury, to be specific, who will act on something like this. It's obvious. You're basically saying, you're putting a hit on them. That's what you're doing. What you're doing is, it is a deliberate attempt to incite violence. In particular, let me lay it out, to incite murder, to incite violence, to incite terrorism. There's no question. Really, what is the point of Jasmine Crockett comparing ICE to slave patrols? It's so absurd. It's so stupid. Oh, seriously. It's so reckless and so false and so inflammatory. Just objectively, think about it. Look, you're not a liberal. Most of you listening are not liberals. Imagine if you are a liberal, if you can just put yourself in that state of mind. Here is what your own leaders, I'm not talking some fringe website. This is what Kamala Harris is saying, the presidential candidate you voted for. This is what the previous president, Joey, is saying. Joe Biden, Dementia Joe. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, the front runner for 2028. Tim Tampon Waltz, the vice presidential candidate in Minnesota. Alexandria Fidel Castro Cortez, one of the leading figures in the Democratic Party. The mayor of Boston, the mayor of LA, the mayor of Chicago. This is what they're saying. ICE are Nazis. They're the, quote, modern-day Gestapo. The modern-day Gestapo. That they're Nazis. Michelle Wu called ICE agents neo-Nazis, saying that neo-Nazis were invading Boston. Who are the neo-Nazis? ICE. Now, you and I listen to that, we laugh. But if you're a moonbat, a liberal, really, what is a moral, virtuous, good person supposed to do? If you're a liberal, and now your leaders are telling you, this is a dictatorship, as Gavin Newsom said on Colbert the night before. Literally, we're living now in an authoritarian dictatorship. And ICE is Trump's private domestic army, his Gestapo, his secret police. Okay, the lines are jammed. I promise I'm going to go to the phone lines. Let me just play this, okay? You tell me. You tell me. And I could do the next 3.5 hours of the show. Okay, whatever, 4 hours of the show on just cut after cut after cut of one prominent Democrat, a Democrat leader, vilifying, villainizing, demonizing ICE. I'm just going to play a few. Now, you tell me if this is not deliberately inflammatory, incendiary, and honestly insane, absurd, unhinged, deranged. Okay? I'm not just false. Loco, crazy. Okay? Here it is. This is Tampon Tim Waltz. And by the way, he said this to a graduating class. It was a commencement speech at the University of Minnesota. So this is the vitriol that they are now peddling to young people who are just coming out of college. This is what Tim Waltz had to say about ICE. Roll cut 4, Mike.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. To be clear, there's no way for us to know whether they were actually criminals or not, because they refused to give them a trial. We're supposed to just take their word for it.
Now, that's a blatant. Everything that he said, literally every word is a lie. It's a complete lie. But notice how he says it. Like the sky is blue. Like he's just stating the obvious. Like 2 + 2 is 4. So they're disappearing people. They're in these masks. They just show up. They just grab you and throw you in an unmarked van. And then you're gone. They don't even know who you are. Whether you did anything wrong. It could be you. It could be anybody. They're just being disappeared. And then you're being sent to El Salvador for foreign torture dungeons. Now, you listen to this. What are you supposed to do? I mean, if you're a moonbat, again, if you believe this idiot, right? Seriously, you're a good, decent human being. Seriously, you're a good moral person. And you're like, what? My government is doing what? Oh my God. What are you supposed to do? Okay, you don't like Tim Waltz. Listen to this. Here's Pritzker. This is Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, another big contender, front runner, one of the leading front runners for the Democratic presidential nomination. Roll cut 5, Mike.
People are being grabbed. and they're being thrown into vans. And that's different than questioning people. And oh, by the way, I want to ask a question to everybody who's listening and to you. Do you carry with you citizenship papers? How do you prove to somebody that you're a U.S. citizen? Your accent? The color of your skin? That's not the country we live in. You know, you shouldn't have to walk around with papers the way that they did in the early days of Nazi Germany to prove that you belong and that you're not one of them. And that is essentially the kind of country that we're becoming if you allow ICE to simply grab people after racial profiling.
I mean, this is unbelievable. Look at the terror. Think about it. If, again, you're a liberal, you don't listen to this show, or you don't listen to other shows like this, and so you're like, oh, this is what my governor said? Oh, my God. So if I'm black, I could just be abducted? Like, just kidnapped, and before you know it, I'm being tortured in El Salvador? Or I happen to be Latino or brown skin or whatever. I'm just walking the streets and then I'm gone. Do you know the terror, the hysteria, the panic, the fear that these idiots are now deliberately spreading? And notice, they all have the same talking points. Have you noticed that? Everybody's now being disappeared. They always, in vans, they just grab you and take you and throw you in. No, they don't care if you're who you are. U.S. citizen, not U.S. citizen. Legal, not illegal. Here's Jasmine Crockett. I could play a lot of her. Let me just play this one. By the way, she represents that Dallas region where the ICE facility was shot up yesterday. That's part of her district. Roll cut 6, Mike.
But as somebody who understands history, when I see ICE, I see slave patrols. Now, I never lived through the slave patrol period, but if you know the history of policing in this country, then you understand that they were born out of slave patrols.
Okay, first of all, police in this country were not born out of slave patrols. Like, where do you get this bull crap? Like, how do you make this garbage up? Again, look at the virulent anti-police rhetoric. So, police are now born out of slave patrols? No. But I'll tell you who created slave patrols. The Democrat Party did. If you want to get technical, the Democrat plantation owners who owned the slaves in the South were Democrats. Slavery was an institution created by Democrats. The Old South was dominated by the Democrats. Slave patrols were a Democrat institution. They ran the freaking slave patrols. You! But again, I don't think there's anything, frankly, more, that and the Gestapo and the KGB, I don't think there's anything more disgusting than those three institutions or groups. And that's what you're comparing ICE to? Again, what is a good moral person supposed to do? You listen to this and I got to do something. Now you know why ICE agents are being attacked. Now you know why their facilities are being shot up. In fact, the shocking thing is, in all honesty, I don't know why more facilities aren't being shot up. I don't know why more ICE agents aren't being ambushed with all of this vile rhetoric that they're. And by the way, it's not a one-off here or a one-off there. It's MSNBC, CNN, the broadcast news networks. It's the media. It's the New York Times, the Washington Post. It's every Democrat politician over and over and over and over. They just keep constantly pounding that point around the clock, 24/7. 24/7. That's their talking point from morning to night every day. Here, one more. Eric Swalwell, bang bang with fang fang. So here's the guy who's banging a Chinese spy or was banging a Chinese spy. Now he's opening his mouth. Listen to what he's saying. So now this is what ICE is. Listen to this. Roll cut 7, a mic.
And these ICE agents running around our communities like masked bank robbers, terrorizing women.
I think it's deliberate. I think it's deliberate. And I'll sum it up for you in literally in a couple of words. Losing elections. They know they can look, they're not stupid. Normal people are fleeing blue states. They are fleeing blue cities because Democrats have failed at governing. Everything they touch, they destroy. And so people are fleeing blue states and blue cities in record numbers. That means less representation in Congress, less electoral votes at the time when you vote for president every 4 years. That means Democratic Party power now is waning, and they're on the verge of becoming a minority party. They need these illegals to keep themselves in power. They need them voting, and they need them represented in the census. They need it, literally, for their political power and their political survival. That's why they're demonizing ICE. They're not saying that assassinations are happening because ICE is disappearing people. That's not the reality. What they're really saying is ICE is disappearing people so assassinations can take place. That's what's really going on. They're lying about ICE, deliberately lying and inflaming and using the most reckless, irresponsible, vile, inflammatory rhetoric because they want ICE agents to be killed and attacked. And why? So then ICE will stop going into these areas and stop their deportations. That's what this is all about. And to be crystal clear, they all know they're not going after some mom with a single, daughter or son or some family or no, they know they're going after the worst of the worst. ICE is going into every major city from Boston to Chicago to LA to Atlanta to Dallas to go after gangbangers, MS-13, child rapists, members of the drug cartels, child molesters, sex traffickers. That's who they're going after. And you're protecting them? You're defending them? And this is now what we have. Look, we're not in a Cold War anymore. I'm sorry, I have to say it. If I'm not here to speak the truth, then honestly, what is the point of me being behind this microphone? The war is getting hot. And they want to kill us. I'm sorry, they want to kill conservatives. And now they want to kill law enforcement. And they want to kill Trump. And what is the Republican response? Nothing. Nothing. They defend Jimmy Kimmel. That's their response. Defend Jimmy. So they can incite more hatred against us. That's their response. And let me just say one last thing, and then I promise I want to go back to the phones. President Trump now has to address the country. He cannot anymore just do a Q&A with reporters and sign executive orders. Look, I think he's doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. But this thing now can get away from him and it can get away from us. Imagine that was 3 ICE agents dead instead of, an illegal and this shooter killing himself and 2 migrants in very critical condition. What if they really slaughter 3, 5, 7, 10 ICE agents? What do you think the reaction is going to be? And by the way, you wonder why they wear masks? Do you have any idea what would happen to these ICE agents? Think about the climate we now live in. Think about this. This is America. Federal law enforcement has to wear a mask. They have to wear a mask. Because if they don't, Democrat politicians identify who they are, give us their names, their addresses, which is called doxing. So they dox them and their families. And they essentially encourage people to go shoot them and kill them in their homes. And so you wonder why they have to wear masks. This is the climate of terror that the Democrats are now spreading across the entire country. Ay, ay, ay. Really, ay, ay, ay. Congressman John Larson from Connecticut, just to give you one of many examples. Okay, that scumbag, that moonbat, delivered a speech in front of anti-ICE protesters, many of whom were Antifa and Black Lives Matter. So these people are very capable of violence. In fact, they embrace and celebrate and champion violence. Some of them, many of them. This is what he said, quote, ICE is the modern day Gestapo. It is time to rise up and take them out. Rise up, America, rise up. He was waving the bloody shirt. What he's saying is, kill him. That's what he said. That's basically what he's saying. Kill them. Go out, take a gun, shoot up their facilities, shoot up their vans, their cars, kill the mother effers. Nothing. Nothing. He's a hero in the Democratic Party. He's a hero. And this is a member of Congress and considered a rising star in the Democratic Party. And you're wondering why? We're getting mass shootings against ICE and constant attacks against ICE almost now every weekend, every week, almost every day. If you love our country and you love peace and you want to preserve our republic, and honestly, any semblance of a democracy, I mean a democratic republic, of open, civil, peaceful discourse, to live in any kind of a civilized society, this has to stop. This has to stop. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Dave in Haverhill. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Dave.
Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about was, like, the guy, I forget his name, he was one of the first callers there. You know, he's talking about that if the government isn't going to do anything, then people are going to take it into their own hands. And you know what? I agree completely, because this is like, I love Trump. I hate the Democrats. I'm a full conservative. I voted for Trump all three times. I've never voted anything but Republican. Okay? But what, you know, you say that is they're doing it deliberately. Of course, the Democrats are doing it deliberately. We can't, you know, ask them to stop. We have to make them stop. You know, because they're not gonna. Why doesn't Congress on our side? So yeah, why isn't every time they made one of their talking points, like those clips you just played, why aren't they going and making a comment of their own, saying, my communist colleague over there, is a lion, and this is why? They just sit back and let the Democrats just keep spewing their rhetoric, and then what about this? Oh, Antifa, right? So he ordered, we're going to round them up. Are they really? Because that is a problem. Like I was telling Mike, your producer there, that what happened to all the deep state stuff with Russia? With all the stuff that what's her name? The lady there, I forget her name. The one who, the DNI one there. Tulsi
Gabbard, all the information that Tulsi Gabbard revealed.
And then all these people that are, that they know committed treason. What's being done? I haven't heard a peep out of that. It's like
please, Dave, don't get me wrong. I agree with you. Okay, please don't think I'm disagreeing. I'm not. I'm just saying that what I've read yesterday, and these are from very credible media outlets. This is not, some fringe website. It appears that Comey is going to be arrested any day now. Now, I want a lot more than Comey. I'm with you. But we're pushing them, and they're starting to slowly move. So we'll wait. We'll see if it's true. But apparently now this district attorney that Trump has now appointed is much more aggressive than the previous one. This is in Eastern Virginia. And apparently now Comey, he's telling his friends he's getting ready to be indicted. So Comey now may get indicted, and once he's indicted, he's going to jail. There's no question. So it is starting to happen. Look, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Dave, like I'm in the confessional. If President Trump picked up the phone and gave Jeff Kuhner a call and said, will you be my attorney general? I swear to God, I'll do it. I'm serious. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll forfeit the job that I love, which is this job. And God knows I don't know what's going to happen to my family. But I swear to you, God is my witness. If you need somebody who's not afraid to be attorney general and who's not afraid to crack heads and clean up this mess, I'm your guy. I'm serious. I'm your guy. I'm willing to do it. Like, if that's what it comes down to, I swear to you, she's not up for the job, period. I'm talking about Pam Bondi. That's the problem. He's got a weak attorney general. And when you have a weak attorney general, you have a weak FBI director. And when you have a weak FBI director, you have a weak deputy FBI director. And so the problem is he's got three people in the three most important positions of what you and I want to accomplish. Smash the radical left. Go after these left-wing terrorists. Put these Democrat criminals and deep state criminals in jail. And he's got three people. Either they're incompetent or they're spineless or they're all talk and no action. Okay, I'm talking Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi. That's his problem. And Dave, until he fixes that problem, you and I are going to continue to get frustrated. And time, every day, is to me one day less that you can put people in jail. So, Dave, that's what, if you're listening, Mr. President, or I know his people are listening, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. This is from 917. Jeff, as you know, Martha's Vineyard has a huge Brazilian population. It's estimated that more than 20%, I didn't know it was that high, of the entire school population of Martha's Vineyard is Brazilian. Wow. In the last few years, each autumn, the so-called Brazilian quote-unquote community has a festival of Brazilian culture. This year, however, it's been canceled because of fear of ICE. What's the fear if you are legally here in the United States? The answer is obvious. So many of the attendees at this festival would not be legal. That's why. By the way, if you're here legally, whether you're on a work visa, a green card, or you're a citizen, whatever, and ICE rounds you up and detains you, and then, God forbid, puts you on a plane and sends you to, I don't know, El Salvador, or take your pick, I'm talking mother of all lawsuits. I'm talking, what, 10 million? You're going to win hundreds of millions of dollars. You're going to be, forget the lottery. Forget the lottery. I'm serious. You become a gazillionaire. Seriously, okay? Seriously. Please arrest me, ICE. Please. If only what Pritzker and Newsom and Crockett and Waltz and Kamala and, whatever, and Michelle Wu, and if only what they were saying is true. Oh, look at this guy, Kuhner. Look at this guy. When did he immigrate here? When did he come here? Grab him. Just grab him and throw him in a van. Throw him in a van. We'll put him on a plane, ship him to El Salvador. Please, I'm begging you, please. I never have to work a day in my life after that. I could literally buy the station. Seriously. Hey, guys, I'm back, but it's even better. I won so much money from the government, I own WRKO. We can say anything we want. It is such garbage what they're spewing. I'm talking civil rights lawsuit, the mother of all civil rights lawsuits. If they detained or deported a single legal resident of the United States. 508 has to chime in. One thing about Attorney General Jeff Kuhner, not much time wasted on hair and nails. No, with me, I swear it'd be the opposite. You guys would be saying, can't you get a better suit, Jeff? Jeff, for God's sake, that tie looks horrible on you. Like, come on, dude. You're Attorney General. Look like it. That's what many of you would be saying. You'd be saying the exact opposite. For God's sakes, get your hair properly coiffed when you get on the air. 617, comb it properly, for God's sake. Hey, get a nice cut. 617-266-6868. And, you are Attorney General. You're on TV. Would it kill you to lose 15 or 20 pounds to look a little better? That's what most of you would be saying. It would be the exact opposite of Pam Bondi. Rich in Natick. Thanks for holding, Rich, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Rich.
I don't know about Attorney General, but after your trip to Europe, possibly I'm falling and can't get up commercial.
Oh, Rich, touche, my friend, touche. Rich, what do you make of all this, my friend?
It's just so plain. It's so obvious. You can't listen to any of their words. You got to look at the actions. They need useful idiots to carry out their agenda. And when they go on the news, and they always do it in front of a camera, and they spew a bunch of BS, without a doubt, it's inevitable that some idiot out there is going to take up the action required for them to, try and make a dent in whatever it is they're trying to do. But my point also is what they've done to ICE. Has it stopped or slowed them down at all? No. I mean, their work goes on. If anything, they do more.
Rich, look, I got to say, I like Todd Lyons a lot. He's the acting ICE director. He's a tough guy. You can see that. He's a brave man, a patriotic man, a determined, a serious man. I was saying I'm very unhappy with, Kash Patel and Bongino and, of course, Pam Bondi. I am very happy with Tom Homan. To me, Lyons is a reflection of Homan. And Homan has really inspired these ICE agents. He's a no-nonsense law enforcement guy. And I agree with you, Rich. Homan is not going to be deterred. Lyons is not going to be deterred. ICE is not going to be deterred. You're right. If anything, this is now just going to spur them on to go after even more illegals and to overcome all of this democratic resistance. So I'm with you all the way. 617-266-6868. Trey in the great state of Georgia, the Peach State. Thanks for holding, Trey, and welcome.
Hey, go Bulldogs. Jeff, I had a quick comment.
Sorry, Trey, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to have a rebellion on my hands if I don't say this. Mike is in my ear. He's a huge Alabama fan. He's like an Alabama fanatic. So he wants me to tell you, go Tide. So
well, he's going to have his chance this weekend.
Roll Tide. I'm sorry. Roll Tide. Forgive me. Roll Tide.
Yeah, Roll Tide. They're going to roll it right on out the door this weekend because Georgia's stepping through.
Trey, go ahead, my friend. I'm sorry about this, but I need civil peace on the show. You know what I'm saying? If we can't have civil peace in America, at least we can have it on the show, Mike. Sorry, Trey. I'm talking to Mike as well. All right, Trey, go ahead.
I'm a first-time caller from your show. I've been
welcome.
listening to you for about almost a year now.
Welcome, Trey.
My condolences to your dad, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that because, like I said, this is my first time talking to you, but I had a comment for you and your listeners, and for all of us, really. You know, with everything that's going on in this country and everything, we've kind of turned a blind eye and opened the door to a different type of warfare. I mean, this is on the home front now. The reason why I say it's a blind eye now is because it's not in your neighborhood. It's so easy to turn that channel on your TV when something ain't going right, or I'll catch the details on it tomorrow. I don't blame the Democrats for what's going on. I don't blame the Republicans. I blame the American people for it because we have allowed it to get this far. Once the cancer sets in, you can pretty much make your own diagnosis that it's there. If you don't treat the virus or cancer or however you want to call it, the steps just get worse and worse. I mean, I hate to say it like that because I love my country too. I'm a veteran. I served 6 tours in Iraq, when I was in the service. But that brings me to my point. How many years have we spent watching Afghanistan, Iraq, Desert Storm, all this stuff? It becomes a new normal. So what do? We turn the channel, turn a blind eye, follow up on everything, and this is just things that I see around here. Well, it ain't happening in my neighborhood. So what if he got killed? So what if Trump's got another assassination attempt? I don't believe in that. I believe in American people should have the right to stand up to this and say enough is enough, man. Enough is enough. If you don't want to handle the concept of this, then change it. It's up to the American people to do this. It's not the politicians. If you don't, they're bad. Why the hell are you putting them back in? Why do you want to keep voting people back in? I don't understand it. Now, Pam Bondi, I don't understand her. For the life of me, I can't understand why she ain't going after some of these people. But, Cash Patel is. I mean, he's doing his job. I don't think he chooses sides on anybody. If you watch him on TV, you listen to him live, this man sits there and says, hey, look, we're going after who's ever on our hit list, who's ever at the top of it. We'll investigate. We'll do whatever we got to do to catch him. But Trump, he's got his hands full. This man's got his hands full. I support him 110%.
Look, Trey, and by the way, I love your accent. Seriously. Just a charming accent. I love the Southern accent. I could listen to it all day. And by the way, I really want to thank you for your service. God bless you, Trey. No, Trey, look, I think you nailed it. Look, I don't blame Trump at all. I think the man is superhuman. He works 20 hours a day. He's got so much on his plate. He's got such a mountain to climb. He's got a massive mess to fix. Biden left him with the mother of all messes. And that's why you need a team. No man can do everything by himself. That's why you need a really good vice president, which he has, a very qualified secretary of state. He has secretary of war. He has. I think Tom Homan as the border czar, as I said, right man for the right job at the right time. I'm not happy with his DOJ team. I'm going to be honest with you, Trey. I'm not happy with Pam Bondi. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but I'm just calling it the way I see it. I'm not happy with Cash Patel. I agree with you. He says the right things. Yes. I'd like to say, but, less talk, more action. Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. And to me, Dan Bongino is borderline useless. So, I'm not happy with other parts of his team. And he's got to fix that, or else we're not going to clean up the mess. At least when it comes to radical domestic left-wing extremism and domestic terrorism. It's getting worse. You're right. It's like a cancer. You ignore it. You bury it. You try to forget about it. As you put it, you change the channel. And it just gets worse and worse. And that's what's happening. And it's getting very close to the point now where we're going to lose control over this. Where it is going to be like in Venezuela or Colombia or like these third world countries where it's just every day. It's just going to be like, how do I say this? Just like the new normal. Where, another terrorist attack. Yeah, this time in Portland. Yeah. Or this time in Seattle. No, this time it was Atlanta. No, this was in Boston. Yeah, another ICE facility shot up. 2 dead, 4 wounded. Okay, and the weather today. This is the kind of country we're going to descend into very soon. And so I'm with you completely, Trey. This apathy among the American people has to end. It has to end. And we have to demand more from our leaders. Look, stop with this garbage, anti-ICE, anti-conservative, anti-MAGA, inflammatory, violent rhetoric. You're getting people killed. And you're going to get more people killed. Enough is enough. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. David in Wakefield. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, David.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, David. Welcome.
I was wondering, I appreciate that Trump is going after Antifa, but why hasn't anybody gone after Soros and his son?
Well, I think, to be fair to Trump, he did come out and say Soros is in big trouble, meaning what he said is, I don't want to just go after the shock troops, the on-the-ground, hardcore, left-wing, violent activists, terrorists. He goes, I want to go after their money people. Who's funding them? Who's giving them, their donors, people who are giving them all of this money so they can organize, they can buy weapons, they can go out and do these domestic terror campaigns. And that's Soros. In fact, he openly said it. He said, George Soros and his son, watch out, we're coming for you. See, the problem that I have, David, and again, you may disagree with me, this is just how I see it. It's almost as if he's telling Pam Bondi how to do her job. It's like he's always like, come on. Literally, come on. Like, what, he's got to drag her kicking and screaming to do her job? To me, what you want as AG is you want a pit bull. You want the opposite. You want somebody, honestly, like a bulldog, speaking of Georgia, like a Georgia bulldog. Like, okay, whoa. Put a leash on that thing. Like, in other words, he's going to, he or she will go after anybody and everybody who's a criminal. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to JD Vance. This was him in North Carolina, reacting to what happened yesterday at the Dallas ICE facility. Another act of left-wing terrorism. Another despicable act of Democrat-inspired political murder. And now JD is saying, I've had enough. Trump has had enough. The country needs to say, enough is enough. Roll cut 10. Mike.
Here's what happens when Democrats, like Gavin Newsom did, say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, really, why can't more Republicans, Trump is obviously one of the few that speaks truth to power, but why can't more Republicans be like JD and obviously his boss, Trump? You have no place in the American political discourse, period. Get lost. And he's right. Here, let me tell you exactly what Gavin Newsom said. This was the night before. He's on Colbert, okay? Stephen Colbert, that low-rated show, that loser, okay, who's going to be taken off the air, what is it, next spring or whenever, next year. And he goes there, and he starts going on about how this is authoritarianism. What ICE is doing, this is Donald Trump's, literally, that's what he said, his private domestic army. This is his secret police. And they're going in unmarked vans wearing masks, disappearing people. And when I say this is authoritarianism, people say I'm being hyperbolic. I can't say it. He goes, I can't say it. BS, bullcrap. He goes, I'm telling you, it's BS. This is authoritarianism. Authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government. And, of course, Colbert is clapping and cheering him on, and the crazy moonbats in the audience, yeah, Gavin, you give it to him, Gavin. And as JD Vance says, those are lies. Everything is a lie. Everything. But if you're imposing a dictatorship, and if ICE is the modern-day Gestapo, and if ICE is disappearing people, if they're now the quote-unquote secret police, then yes, you're inspiring unhinged people to start shooting and killing law enforcement. It's so obvious. And by the way, you're insane. If you believe this, you're literally insane. Now, can I just say something very quick because I want to go back to the phone lines. People don't know this, but if you watch Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whatever, any of these cable news networks, they're not regulated or governed by the FCC. That's why they can swear. I mean, I don't think their audience likes it, but they can drop F-bombs. Nothing will happen. Bull, I can't say it, the BS word, and nothing will happen. However, CBS is governed by the FCC. Stephen Colbert's show was on late night, it's late night on CBS. Those are FCC rules. You're saying, well, Jeff, what's your point? Gavin Newsom drops the BS bomb to act tough, and it's not bleeped. It's not bleeped. If we play the cut, we have to bleep it out. But on CBS, and so I'm listening to this, and I'm like, so let me get this straight. This loser can go again on FCC-regulated programming and use an obscenity, a profanity, and nothing happens to either him or Colbert or CBS. But I'm telling you that if I ever drop the BS, or never mind the F-bomb, but if I drop BS, the full thing, on the air, they're fining me and iHeart millions of dollars. So again, to show you the double standards, if you're a Democrat or a liberal, you can even violate FCC, the most basic guidelines, the most basic rules, where you can't use profanity or obscenity. You can't. Period. You're going to get a massive fine. No problem. They do it, no problem. Hell, they're clapping. Yeah, give it to them. Swear some more. Give it to them. Say it as it is, Gavin. One BS word from me. One F-bomb. Just one. And I'm looking at millions of dollars like this. Like this. Snapping my fingers. But let that go. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Mike, who do you want me to go to next? Jeff in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Nice to hear from you, Jeff.
Nice to hear from you as well, and I'm glad you're feeling better. So I got a couple things. I don't think the rhetoric from the left is causing this. The fact of the matter is that everything they say is just being written on bullets and spewed out of all the left-wing lunatics. It's just a coincidence. You know what I mean? You don't believe in coincidences? And then second of all is they tried to put Donald Trump in prison for saying go peacefully and patriotically. We definitely need to get rid of Pam Bondi. She's a waste product. She's a waste of oxygen, and nothing is happening. And I don't know what goes on with Trump's attorney general picks, Sessions, Bill Barr. You could go through the list. There's nothing good there. Something needs to be done, because if not, the American people are going to take it into their own hands. It's time we wake up and realize that the left has declared war on us.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for your courage. I really do, because you're saying what so many people are thinking, but they're afraid or too cowardly or for whatever reason. to maybe concerned about the consequences if they actually say it out loud. But you're saying what many people are thinking. The left has declared war on us, and the left has declared war on America. And this is the sad conclusion I think we have to come to. I don't want to come to it. Nobody wants to come to this conclusion. But I agree with you. This is where we are. And I think the Democratic Party is the Vatican. It is the citadel. It is the head of the snake of this movement. I think there's no question. That is their church. And they want to burn the country down. If they can't govern it, if they can't rule it, if they can't impose their will, if they're going to continue to lose elections. And now, you see, what's changed is that Trump now is unplugged, completely unfettered in his second term. I mean, I know he wants he wants to pass the baton to JD and have JD continue his legacy. I get it. But this is a very different Trump than the first term. I've never seen him do this much so fast. And, you know, you mentioned Pam Bondi. He's pushing her to start arresting people. That's, I believe, why they're going to indict James Comey. In other words, he's like, look, can you go after these criminals? Like, what do they have to do before you people get off your rear end and start putting them in handcuffs? So he's really driving this administration. He's the one, and especially the DOJ and the FBI, he's the one that's saying, come on, start putting people in jail, for God's sake. How many more crimes can they get away with? So I'm with you, Jeff. The left now realizes that Trump is playing for keeps. He's going for the jugular. He's going to dismantle the deep state. He's going to put some of these criminals in jail. He's now setting up really what he's creating it's a multiracial working class political coalition. It's very reminiscent of FDR, the New Deal, Reagan. He's putting together a coalition that is going to transform and realign American politics, honestly, for a generation to come. You know, if they play their cards right, I mean, I don't want to get lost in the weeds here. I don't know if you've seen the polling. On every top issue, border, immigration, the economy, inflation, jobs, crime, foreign policy, just go right down the list. Voters overwhelmingly prefer Trump Republicans, the Trump Republican Party, to the Democrats. And it's not even close. Like, I mean, it's 70-30, 80-20. So what you're looking at now, and the Democrats can see it, the writing's on the wall, they're going to be consigned to political oblivion, to the political wilderness for 10, 15, 20 years. You could easily, very easily, and I know liberals, they don't want to admit it in public, but in private, I know they're nodding their head up and down. Trump finishes his second term, JD for 2 terms. And then what? Maybe Rubio? Maybe Rubio for another 2 terms? Or maybe Erica Kirk? Or what I'm saying is, you're looking at 16, 20, 24 years, potentially, of MAGA rule. We have 20 years of MAGA rule. This country is not only fixed, it is fundamentally changed for the better. The Democrats are finished. And the last time they lost their grip on power in this kind of a way led to the Civil War. That's what 1860 was fundamentally about political power. And the Democrats realized with the rise of the Republicans that they were not able to stop the Republican Party. And when Lincoln won, that's what triggered the Civil War, was Lincoln's victory. When Lincoln won, it wasn't slavery. Lincoln promised them, I will not touch slavery in the South. You can keep it forever. We will not touch it. It was Lincoln's victory, his political victory in 1860. And that's when the Democrats in the South said, we're out. We're out. So they are losing their grip on power. And that's why we're sliding into a hot civil war. Bit by bit, inch by inch, massacre by massacre, shooting by shooting. But we're slowly getting there. And that's why you, me, the normal people of America, the heart of the country, is saying, nip it in the bud now, stop it before this genie is completely out of the bottle. Because once it's out, you can't put it back in. Jeff, final word to you.
My final word would be pretty simple. I mean, Donald Trump needs to address the nation. I agree with you on that 100%. He needs to bring out a cut that has every Democrat saying that he has to go to jail for January 6th for saying go peacefully and patriotically. And then he has to bring out the cuts of all of the Democrats spurring all of this on and causing all of this death, because that's whose hands it's under. If this was a Republican, the media would be going absolutely crazy. They would be losing their minds if this was one MAGA supporter. It wouldn't matter who it was. And the fact of the matter is, we have to realize that the left has declared war. People have to wake up and figure it out. And the only way out of this that I can see without bloodshed and violence is for the American people to stop going to work, stop sending money into the Treasury, and see how a $37 trillion in debt country pays its bills next week. We can end this with no violence without blinking an eye.
Yes, you're right. You're completely right. Not 100. You're 1,000% correct. Or the American people rise up. I mean, politically rise up. I don't mean violently rise up. Politically rise up and tell to the Democrats, you continue with this fascism, Nazism, Gestapo, secret police, racism narrative. Like, you keep spewing this poison, you're going to lose more seats. You're going to lose more power. In other words, you're going to get so politically and electorally punished for your reckless, incendiary, false, lying rhetoric that you pay the mother of all political prices. You know, the mother of all political price. Like, in other words, the American people have that. When I mean I say enough is enough, it's like, shut your mouth. What? ISIS slave patrols? You're finished. Politically, you're done. You're done. What? I'm sorry. Trump is Hitler? You're done. You're done. We don't vote for you. That's it. You're out of office. Enjoy your time, because you're going to be out the next election. And if the Democrats realize, like, oh my God, we're losing governorships, we're losing state legislatures, we're losing seats in the House, we're losing seats in the Senate, every time we open our freaking mouth and say something like this, it's costing us politically. We become more in the minority and more in the minority. So you're right. Either we have to economically force them by withholding our taxes. In other words, economic pain or political pain. That's the only way it's going to stop. I'm with you, Jeff. Either door one or door two. But what we've been doing so far, which is just let's look the other way. Democrats will be Democrats. What can you do? Jasmine Crockett's an idiot. Gavin's an idiot. Michelle Wu's an idiot. That people are getting killed. That doesn't work anymore. Now they're just being emboldened because they see no consequences. Jeff, thank you very much for that call. And by the way, just to show you the lunacy on the left, okay, you got to hear it to believe it. Really, you got to hear it to believe it. I just want to play for you two cuts. Okay? Two cuts. You won't believe it. I'm telling you, if I don't play the cut, you won't believe it. So, this is cut numero uno. Listen now to this, okay? This is Jasmine Crockett. Now remember, she's considered one of the leading lights and rising stars in the Democratic Party. She's considered now essentially the new AOC. Like, who's going to be AOC after AOC? They go, it's her. She's on CNN, can't get enough of her. MSNBC, they have her on all the time. New York Times, Washington Post. Just pick up the Boston Globe. There's always either interviews with her or stories about her. They love her. She's like one of their key voices. Listen to this. Okay? Listen to this. She's on. This is a podcast. I never heard of this guy, Jonathan Van Ness. Anyway, listen to what she says. Roll cut 128. Mike.
Understanding what ends up having people become criminally impacted really informs so much of what I do legislatively, right? So when people are like, oh, crime is terrible. And yes, it is, right? Like, because when somebody goes out and commits a crime, they don't typically, say, well, I'm a D or I'm an R, I'm an I. It's not like literally like, it's about, well, how do you fix it? How do you make communities safer? And I do think that I'm in a unique situation because I was having the conversations with people that were going out and committing crimes. And so I understood what was kind of pushing them there. And so I do want people to know that just because someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal. That is completely different. Being a criminal is more so about your mindset.
So just because you commit a crime doesn't make you a criminal. I swear, if I said, come on, Jeff, you're twisting her words. Nobody can be that freaking stupid, Jeff. Jeff, come on now. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say this, and it's one of the most controversial things I've ever said on radio. But I'm going to say it. And I'm going to get tremendous backlash from the audience, but I'm sorry I have to say it. I think Jasmine Crockett is actually stupider than AOC. And even stupider than Maxine Waters. Now, I know I can feel the backlash already. I can feel my email inbox and the text line. Jeff, what? No, I'm telling you, I think she's even a little stupider than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and believe it or not, that I never thought I would say this, even stupider than Maxine Waters. So, by the way, to all the guys out there, honey, just because I had an affair, just because I cheated on you, hey, it doesn't mean I'm an adulterer. Hey, just because I embezzled money, it doesn't mean I'm a crook. Look how they're determined to coddle and defend and protect and champion criminals. Just because I shoot you in the head, it doesn't make me a murderer. Just because I deal drugs, it doesn't mean I'm a drug dealer. Hey, just because they diddle kids, just because they're molesting kids, doesn't mean they're pedophiles. What are you talking about? They're deep down there. They're good people. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quickly, since we're on the topic of Jasmine Crockett, what the hell? Let me play one more. Her greatest hits, as they say. So, she's asked, because, she keeps comparing Trump to Hitler. Again, and again, and again. As did Joe Biden, as does Kamala Harris, as does Tim Walz, as does Gavin Newsom, as does Michelle Wu, I could just run down the whole list. Pritzker in Illinois, the media, it's the same tape over and over again. Hitler. And so even this liberal broadcaster is like, well, like it really isn't, we're not living in the Third Reich. Like, don't you think you guys should tone it down a little bit? Like, don't you think this is getting a little crazy here? Listen to her response. Roll cut 127. Mike.
Do you have a responsibility as an elected official not to raise the temperature, but rather lower the temperature, particularly when there are people out there who listen to elected officials all over the place who are not well, who use that as a way to instigate the political violence that you are calling out?
I think that my responsibility is to be transparent and to be honest. And the reality is that we are living in a time in which this administration and this regime is not interested in making sure that people understand history. We need to understand why they are so problematic. And so I am using that language because it is accurate language. When we see the consolidation of power, when we see them trying to chill speech of jokesters, when we're seeing all of this, that is a playbook out of Hitler, and I won't deny it. Like, these are the facts.
So Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, he's back on the air now, but taking Jimmy off the air, that's Hitler. So I guess we're no longer, seriously, now that he's back on the air by her insane logic, well, we're no longer Hitler. It's no longer the Fourth Reich. Why? Well, Jimmy's back on the air. Okay, very quickly. This is from Mark on Messenger, and as usual, hit the nail right on the head. So, Jeff, according to Jasmine Crockett's philosophy, if I commit a crime, it doesn't make me a criminal. Then I'm not a racist. Stupid. You. You know, I didn't even look at it that way, Mark, but that is so true. You know, I swear, I'd love to have her on just for 30 seconds. Well, you know, according to your thinking, if I call you the N-word now, it doesn't mean I'm a racist, right? I mean, I'm just according to your logic. Like, hello? Bill in Medfield. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Jeff,
Hi,
what
Bill.
you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you? AG, yes! Yes, yes! Oh, and roll tide, roll! As a matter of fact. And I got three things I want to say.
Go ahead, Bill.
Number one, Trump has got to go to every city in America and show the papers from when Clinton and Obama were president on how many were deported this year or this week or this month or whatever, right? That's number one. Number two, can't there be a trial in the House and the Senate? If you want to secede from the Union, from the United States, then you keep your sanctuary city. But if you want to keep your sanctuary city, you have to secede from the Union. And the third thing and final thing I got to say is, I forgot my point.
Well, you got so excited for the first two, that's why you forgot the third. But no, look, Bill, your fundamental point is dead on. They're committing treason. There is no such thing as a sanctuary city. They just made that up. It's a legal fiction. There's no such thing as a sanctuary state. That's a legal fiction. What that really means in plain English is it's an insurrection. We refuse to abide by the law. And we refuse to respect the government that's in power and the civil authority that's in power and the laws of the country. And look, I have to say this about Michelle Wu. She's no different than Mamdani, and she's no different than Brandon Johnson, that crazy mayor in Chicago, or the Karen Bass, that commie mayor in Los Angeles. She's the one who has compared ICE. I'm talking about Marxist Michelle Wu now. She's compared ICE explicitly, saying they're neo-Nazis. When you see them in Boston, they are neo-Nazis. She's the one that said they're Trump's secret police. And they're kidnapping, disappearing people, torturing people, detaining people illegally, sending them off to all these torture dungeons. So no one has done more to incite violence and to incite this hatred for ICE and for law enforcement than Michelle Wu. And so if no one else in Boston's going to say it, I'm going to say it. She has blood on her hands. She has blood on her hands. And I'm with you, Bill. It's time to start locking these traitors up. The last time I checked, if you want to secede, that's called treason. And that's what Michelle Wu is. She's a traitor. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, is Democrats or, is the violent rhetoric the anti-ICE rhetoric from Democrats? Is it now inciting and fomenting violence? I say yes. What say you? 617-266-6868. And what should we do about it? What can we do about it? What should Americans do about it? And honestly, what should the Republicans and the Trump administration do about it? Okay, before I go back to the blazing phone lines, 617-266-6868. As I discussed earlier in the show, James Comey now is telling everyone around him, including the media, that he will be indicted any day now. There are multiple reports coming. Trump has said he's had enough. He's basically told Pam Bondi, fish or cut bait. I want these deep state criminals indicted, and I want them in jail. Start with Comey, start with Brennan, start with Clapper. I don't care who you start with, but start arresting people. And so apparently now the U.S. District Attorney for Eastern Virginia is now preparing an indictment against Comey. Any day now, it should be handed down. And so the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will James Comey go to trial on perjury charges? What they're apparently, according to these reports, they're going to go after Comey on perjury, where in front of Congress, he lied under oath. If you remember, we covered it at the time. And he blatantly lied, saying that he never authorized any leaks to the media, which is not true, that he never authorized aides underneath him or people close to him to leak against Trump regarding Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax. There are a ton of emails, text messages. He authorized it. It's obvious he authorized it. He lied under oath. So they're going to start with a perjury case against Comey and then build from there. So my question to you, will James Comey, will he go to trial on perjury charges? In other words, are we going to see any semblance of justice? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and again last night, super active on X. My handle, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in national ER, at the Kuhner Report. Right now, about 38% of you say yes. Over 60%, 61 to be more accurate, say no. Look, my heart wants to say yes. There's nothing I'd love more than to see that deep state criminal and traitor get his comeuppance and go to trial. I don't know if I've just become too cynical, too jaded, because I so many times over the years I've gotten my hopes up and then it all fizzles and it comes to nothing. But if I was voting, I'd probably vote no. I don't know. There's just, I look at Pam Bondi, I look at her team, and do they have the stomach to see this thing all the way to the end? I know Trump does. I know, let's say, JD Vance does. Or let's say if Stephen Miller was the Attorney General. But her, I'd have to vote no. I don't want to vote no, but I'd have to vote no. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
I have a few other things to say, but as time went on, I've just localized a few things here right to Massachusetts. Do you remember the judge, I believe his name was Joseph, Newton judge, where she conspired with the clerk to let an illegal alien who was being released out the back door so that ICE, okay. I don't know who was running the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time, Republicans or Democrats. I don't remember. But I do not believe, and what I saw was what you would call an obstruction of justice. Okay? For instance, if that lunatic who supposedly killed himself, 29 years old, amongst the many charges, if he lived, would have been levied against him, would be obstruction of justice. Nobody did that with her. I think it was simply decided by the court system that she was not to be found at fault. She should have been prosecuted, investigated and prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll give you another one. There was a two-bit low-level bank robber convicted twice from Africa, I believe, and a judge, a magistrate, whatever, appointed by another malignant dwarf there, small of all, Patrick. She released him, or gave him a release date to cover him for like one extra day where ICE couldn't get a hold of him. Within 2 weeks, he murdered two anesthesiologists, I believe, in the Back Bay. It was a vicious murder, okay? That judge should have gone before, okay? She should have gone before a federal investigation with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston for dereliction of duty. She caused the murders of those two people. These are the kinds of things that have to happen to make people pay attention. Okay?
Nick, you're completely right. And look, let me just put an exclamation point on your excellent points. We have a judicial system, a justice system, that is populated with rabid anti-Trump, Obama or Clinton or Biden-appointed judges who have been pushing open borders, who have been coddling not just illegal aliens. We're talking scum of the scum, criminal, violent illegals. And you're right. They let them back out on the street. They do everything in their power not to notify ICE so that they continue to be a menace to the public. And notice, they live in very privileged neighborhoods. The thing about these Massachusetts liberals, I'm telling you, these Democrats, they're the biggest hypocrites on the planet. Notice, in their communities, let's say Wellesley, Brookline, not to pick on them, they're beautiful neighborhoods. The illegals aren't there. They don't have illegals where they live, but they have illegals where we live. And so we get to deal with the murderers who are released, and the gangbangers, and the drug dealers, and the child molesters, and the sex traffickers. So if they actually had to live with the consequences of their decisions, if their homes were being burglarized, if their streets were being polluted with drugs, if their daughters were being raped, if their family members were being murdered or killed, believe me, it wouldn't be a revolving door for illegal aliens. Okay, very, very quick reset, and I want to go right back to the jammed phone lines. Another left-wing terrorist attack, this time at an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas. A 29-year-old anti-ICE leftist, Joshua John, his mother in particular, rabidly anti-Trump, rabidly liberal, hates anything that's Republican, conservative. Anyway, we pretty much know where he got his politics from. Anyway, according to the FBI, he took a rifle. He went on a rooftop, very similar to Tyler Robinson, who assassinated and murdered Charlie Kirk, and then began to indiscriminately, almost wildly, shoot up the ICE detention facility. He began to shoot at the building. He shot up the windows. In fact, they said bullets reached all the way into the lobby. And then he spotted a van, an unmarked van, which had ICE agents in it, as well as several illegal alien detainees. He then began to spray bullets, shot after shot after shot, into the white van. as they were trying to transfer the detainees, the illegals, into the ICE facility. By the grace of God, and only by the grace of God, ICE agents were not injured, shot, or killed. However, one of the detainees was murdered. 2 others are in very critical condition, a stable condition, but very critical condition. As law enforcement closed in on Joshua John, the shooter, he then took his gun and shot himself, committing essentially suicide, killing himself with a self-inflicted gun wound. At the scene of his dead body, they found unspent bullet casings with anti-ICE messages engraved on them. In fact, one of the bullets literally just had anti-ICE written on it. This was a targeted, deliberate attack. His goal was to kill ICE personnel and ICE agents only because he couldn't have a clean line of sight and shot up a van. He inadvertently ended up killing the very people he was trying to, quote unquote, rescue and save. ICE now says this is part of a growing pattern. It's in Texas. It's all over, where you now have left-wing lunatics incited by Democrat leaders, the media, and politicians who are villainizing, demonizing, vilifying ICE, in which now here, just in northern Texas a couple months ago on July 4th, another anti-ICE leftist set up an ambush and shot and injured ICE agents in a premeditated terrorist attack. In another part of Texas, another ICE facility was shot up. Throughout the country now, ICE agents, as they conduct their raids and seek to arrest violent criminal illegal aliens, they are being pelted with rocks, bottles, they are being assaulted, shots are being fired at them, their cars are being attacked. They say that ICE agents now are under siege. And furthermore, you now have some Democrat politicians who are calling, like Gavin Newsom, for their masks to be taken off. And many of them want these ICE agents to be what's called doxxed, their names given out, their addresses, their homes, their families where they live, and some are openly encouraging to go after ICE agents and their families. Now, Newsom in particular is now taking a public beating, and rightly so, for some of the most outlandish, inflammatory rhetoric I've ever heard used against law enforcement in this country. And it's Gavin Newsom now who is trying to push a bill through the state legislature in California that says ICE agents who are trying to conduct operations on California soil must have their masks forcibly removed by either state police or local police. In other words, he wants them identified. He wants people to see their faces because he wants them to be threatened in their homes, and thereby they will no longer conduct ICE raids for fear that they or their families will be killed, threatened, or attacked. Now, according to constitutional legal experts, that is unconstitutional and illegal. Federal law trumps state or local law when it comes to the issue of ICE and enforcement of federal immigration law. So Gavin Newsom can pass all the legislation he wants. He does not have the legal constitutional authority to force ICE agents to take off their mask. But if you want to know why they wear masks, this is exactly why. Because Democrats like him have put a target right on their back. I mean, they're essentially putting out a hit, telling people, here are their names, here are their faces, here's where they live and their families, go get them. So if you want to know why ICE agents are forced to wear masks, this is why. They are being hunted as they try to enforce the law and enforce the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump. He has an electoral mandate to deport illegal aliens, especially violent criminal illegals. 617-266-6868. This is a revolt against law and order. It is a revolt against the federal government, which is in fact the definition of insurrection. And this is a revolt against democracy itself. What should Trump and his administration do as the violence, like a cancer, spreads and spreads and spreads? George in Berkeley. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Jeff, I just wanted to go back to your conversation regarding Pam Bondi. I agree with you 100%. I think she's way out of her league. I think she's afraid to take any significant action. I believe that Trump's first pick was his best pick, and that was Matt Gaetz. We're not going to see him back, but I believe if he was there, he would be tearing these people apart. But I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon. But you did say something about a legacy that we may have in the future about different people to become president. You said, Trump's there, and then we'll get JD Vance, hopefully. I would hope we'd see Tulsi Gabbard. I know you've been real high on her. I was high on her when she was a Democrat. I could see something in her, and I think she's doing a great job. But the one person you mentioned that I disagree with you 100% is Marco Rubio. And I'll tell you why. And maybe you can explain it to me, because I've heard nobody in the media explain this. Marco Rubio was a unanimous pick. Every single Democrat voted to confirm him. That's impossible. When's the last time the Democrats have done anything like that? What makes Marco Rubio so special that you have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders vote for him? Every single vote, every single candidate that Trump put up there, whether they were good or bad, they had to destroy them. They wanted to put Trump in jail. They would have sentenced to death if they could have. Why would they give him 1 ounce of deference on a pick? What makes Marco Rubio so special? And I'll tell you, back in the 2016 election, I watched all those debates, and when Trump was slaying Republican after Republican, as I kid, at the time I was a registered Democrat, by the way, when he was slaying these people, I told my wife, I said, Marco Rubio is the one that the powers that be, the deep state, want. They want him. He is their guy. He's basically the Republican version, I think, of Obama. He's been created. He's been supported. He's been financed throughout his political career to get to this point. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And I'll tell you, all you have to do is watch the video when Trump and Vance masterfully basically broke Zelensky down in the Oval Office. You watch Rubio's body language, his facial expressions. He didn't like what they were doing. He had fear in his eyes. He was incredibly uncomfortable. Just watch the video. You'll see. He didn't chime in at all of any significance. He was not happy to even be there and be associated with what they were doing. And what they did, I believe, was magnificent. So when you promote Marco Rubio and say, oh, he'd be a great president. No, he wouldn't. That's what they wanted back in 2016, and that's what they're going to get if people fall for this guy. Could you explain to me why all these Democrats, 100% of them, would support a pick of Donald Trump? Not because even if the guy was good, even if he was the greatest candidate in the world, they still wouldn't do it, because the only answer is, well, they like Marco Rubio and he'd be good for the country. They don't want things that are good for the country. They want to destroy the Trump administration and destroy MAGA and destroy any conservative that believes that this country should be going in the direction it's in. So please, if you can, explain it to me.
Well, no, the only reason why I mentioned Rubio, and maybe I should have explained it a little bit more, is that the betting right now is the way it works in American politics, right? And you know this as well as I do, George, is usually the VP is the heir apparent. So JD is the heir apparent to Trump. And even Trump said, I think JD is going to be my heir apparent. But he was praising Rubio, saying Rubio is doing a very good job, etc. So saying, he goes, I think there'll be a horse race between the two of them. He goes, but I expect JD to be my successor in 2028. Now, the betting odds are that it'll be a JD Marco Rubio ticket. I'm not saying I like that ticket. I'm not saying I want Rubio as the VP. All I'm just saying is if you just play it out the way it's normally played out, it'll be JD and Rubio. Then JD does his 8 years. And, of course, he'll pass the baton off to Marco Rubio. My only point was you're staring at 8, 12, 16 more years. And I didn't mean MAGA rule in the sense that Rubio is MAGA. I don't believe he is MAGA. What I mean is these are the offspring of Trump, right, from his administration. So the Democrats will be in the political wilderness. They won't be occupying the White House for 16, maybe 20, 24 more years. Even FDR and his New Deal wasn't able to do that. If you remember, FDR wins in 32, and then Eisenhower comes back in 52. So the Republicans are out of power in terms of the presidency for 20 years. That's pretty much what the Democrats are staring at, and they know that. No, look, I don't like Rubio. I mean, I think he's doing a fine job. He's doing an okay job. He's a warmonger. He's a neoconservative. He's very pro-Ukraine. You're right. He was very uncomfortable in that meeting, which I agree with you. I think it broke Zelensky, that Trump and JD Vance and Zelensky had. He is now in the saddle when it comes to Ukraine policy. He's now won out over JD for now. It's basically what Rubio wanted. Full military financial aid to Ukraine and fight this war against Putin for years. So he's a warmonger. And look, I've never forgotten this about Rubio. And this is, you mentioned 2016. And you're right, the Weekly Standard endorsed him. They were a very big neoconservative magazine. Bill Kristol, a diehard anti-never-Trumper, endorsed him. The deep state loves him. The military-industrial complex loves him. So I think he would betray the Trump revolution if he was to become president. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. And the biggest one for me of everything is I'll never forget this. He was part of the Gang of Eight. This was under Obama. 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, they came together and they pushed for a massive amnesty bill. And the way he argued for that amnesty bill, he went on Rush Limbaugh's show when Rush was still alive. He went on Fox. He went everywhere. He was willing to expend all of his political capital to give amnesty to over 20 million illegals. And of course, the bill failed. There was massive conservative backlash. To be honest, I think it's one, not the only, but one of the big reasons why Trump beat him. Because everybody remembered the Gang of Eight. So, what does Rubio truly believe in his heart of hearts? I'll tell you. He's for open borders. He's for amnesty. He's for mass third world illegal immigration. He's for endless forever wars. And he's a creature, fundamentally, of the deep state and the military-industrial complex. In other words, he's a globalist who's now a chameleon, who's changed and he's disciplined. To give him his due, he's very disciplined. So he knows, if I'm going to succeed as Trump's Secretary of State, let me do my boss's bidding to the T. To the T. Trump says, we're going to get China, kick him off the Panama Canal. There's Rubio pushing China out of the Panama Canal. Like, whatever Trump asks him to do, he does. So in that sense, he's very disciplined because he's extremely ambitious. So that was my only point. No, look, I'll say it right now. I'm backing JD in 2028. I love JD. I've always loved JD. I think he's a brilliant America First conservative. I think ideologically, philosophically, morally, his character, his core, he is MAGA through and through. And up to now, I think he's been a magnificent vice president. Really, Trump could not ask for a better right-hand man, which is what a VP should be. Now, if you're asking me who should be JD's VP, Tulsi Gabbard. If you're asking me now, Jeff, okay, after JD Vance, who does the Kuhner man like? I will take Tulsi Gabbard over Marco Rubio any day of the week. I want her as Vance's VP. Let's say it doesn't happen, and it ends up being Rubio, just for the sake of argument, and then it's Rubio who then wants to contest for the presidential nomination. I would back Gabbard over Marco Rubio without hesitating. Because what she's done now as DNI and what she unmasked and exposed regarding the Russia collusion hoax and how she did it and how gutsy and courageous and patriotic she's demonstrated herself to be, she's America first, man. Now, I don't agree with her on everything. I'm maybe more to the right than you are, but those are little ticky-tack issues as far as I'm concerned. On the big issues, I'm with Tulsi, and Tulsi's with us. And to me, she's 1,000 times better than Marco Rubio. I don't know if that answers your question, George, but that's how I feel.
Well, it does, Jeff, and I can tell you thank you for letting your thousands and thousands of listeners hear your explanation, because I agree with you 100% the way you're speaking now. I think we're blood brothers on this issue. I'm really happy you've enlightened people about Marco Rubio, because everything you said is exactly to the point. It's exactly what I would have said, except I think you've said it better than I could have. And I really hope that what you're hoping for and what I'm hoping for comes true in the future. So thanks a lot for letting me get that out there.
Oh, and thank you for your call. Really, George, very intelligent call. Seriously. George, thank you again. I appreciate it. Really. Look, I know, I sound like a broken record, but the audience, the callers take the show to a different level. Best audience in the business. I'm telling you, best audience in the business. And it's not even close. 617-266-6868. Now, Rubio's doing a very nice job as Secretary of State. Please, hey, Jeff, what are you doing ripping on Rubio? I'm not. He's done a very nice job. He's done everything. And look, Trump is very happy with him. You're just, you're asking me for, the top job. Who would I back? JD Vance. And after JD, it'd be Tulsi Gabbard. That's just how I feel. 617-266-6868. Anthony in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Well, Jeff, thank you for having me, as always. I'd like to address why the Democrat politicians and leaders are being so violent with their rhetoric, and that's because their base is violent. If you think about it, this has been going on for over 30, 40 years. The Rodney King riots, where Democrats pulled a white Reginald Denny out of a gas truck and beat him to death. Okay? You've said it in the past, if I had that proverbial magic wand and I could wave it across the country, if I could take away guns from Democrats, there'd be a lot less gun deaths and violence in this country. It's just a fact that Democrats have a violence problem and they just don't want to address it. The top 10 cities in this country, now I'm not saying there's no violent Republicans, because there are, but the majority of the violence in this country is on the left. The 9 top cities in the country are Democrat-run cities. That means that the people that live in those cities are Democrats. Black violence on blacks is through the roof. Unbelievable. And 83% of black African Americans vote Democrat. So people, I'm sorry, that means that the Democrats are the ones that are causing all these problems. So if you want to know why the leaders of their party are being so violent with their rhetoric, it's because that's what their base feeds upon.
Anthony, look, you're right. I don't want you to think that I disagree with you. You're 100. In fact, you're 1,000% correct. What I find, this is what I'm trying to, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. You're right. You mentioned Rodney King, the Rodney King riots. I won't forget that. They burned downtown L.A. to the ground. I'll never forget what they did to that white truck driver. You're completely right. That mob just pulled him out of that truck and they beat him senseless. They beat him an inch to his life. I mean, they would have taken his life, really. So you're right. They've been very violent for a long time. But something has changed in the party. And you tell me if you agree or disagree. Take Tip O'Neill, right? You know, he was always about, like he was, Reagan's arch nemesis. Tip O'Neill was not a guy who incited violence and murder. Jimmy Carter, he was incompetent, but he didn't incite murder. Okay, just super quick. Many of you are saying, Jeff, that poor truck driver who got beaten up during the Rodney King riots in the early 90s, Reginald Denny was his name. Correct. Yeah, they beat him to a pulp. I mean, to within an inch of his life. So what I was just getting at with Anthony, and he made excellent points, don't get me wrong. He said this, Democrat violence goes back 30 years, 35 years. Yes, there's no question. But I'm talking about the leadership of the Democratic Party. To me, everything changed after Obama. And look, I wasn't a big fan of Tip O'Neill. I wasn't a big fan of Jimmy Carter. Certainly wasn't a big fan of Bubba, Bill Clinton, even Bill Clinton. But, Tip O'Neill, forgive me. Tip O'Neill, wasn't inciting murder or violence. Jimmy Carter, he never incited murder or violence. Now, yes, the Clintons have been brutal and what they've done behind the scenes, but I'm talking publicly. Bubba wasn't telling people, go out and kill people. What you're seeing now, and again, you may disagree with me, I'm just giving you my honest opinion. Since the election of Obama, there has been this rise, not just in the radical left, but in this violent, hateful radical left. And I'm not saying it wasn't there in the Democratic Party. It was. But now they kind of kept it more in the corner. They were able to keep it more on the fringe. After Obama, they bubbled to the surface. It's a different party under Obama. It's become a socialist party, a blatantly anti-American party, a communist Marxist party, in many ways a pro-Islamist party. And it's becoming a party that you can see year by year by year, it gets worse, is becoming more sympathetic and even now almost openly embracing political violence and political terrorism. They're inciting people to commit murder and assassination. There's no question now. They're not saying things because they're true. They're saying things to foment, to incite, to get unhinged people to commit acts of murder or acts of terrorism or acts of assassination. When you call your opponent now Hitler and claim that ICE is the secret police, the modern day Gestapo, slave patrols that are going around randomly just disappearing, kidnapping people, torturing them, sending them to torture dungeons. It could be you. It could be your parents. It could be anybody. This is not a serious argument. This is deliberately inflammatory, incendiary, false, in order to get people to commit acts of terror and acts of violence. Why? Because they don't want ICE to deport illegals. Because that's their power. That's their base. So, to me, you look at, there's a qualitative difference, say, between a Jimmy Carter, I'm just going to use him as an example, and an Obama, or a Joe Biden, or a Kamala Harris, and there's certainly a huge difference between them and a Bernie Sanders, and an AOC, and a Jasmine Crockett, and a Michelle Wu. The lunatic left has now hijacked and taken over the Democratic Party. And now we are getting Marxist totalitarian violence in this country that we used to see in other countries around the world. That's now what's changed. You may disagree. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Tim in South Dennis. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
I love you in a non-sexual manner, my friend.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, the real architect of all of this, going back, I think, to Obama, is Maxine Waters, the first one who should actually be in a prison cell. She's the one that started it all with during the hands up, don't shoot, talking about white police officers just wake up every day, wait until they can get some. You know, and then, so of course, that stirred the masses up. Then during the George Floyd riots, this is a woman, I believe it was in Cleveland. She flew into that city in the middle of a riot, going on saying, you people need to stay in the streets. We're going to be out here doing what we're doing. And while she's saying that, one of her staffers said to her, Madam Congresswoman, there's a curfew in effect since 8 o'clock. Remember her answer? I don't care. That's white man's laws. I don't follow those. You need to stay out here. She's the one that with megaphones went out in public and told people, you see anybody from Trump's first administration, you know, you surround them, you call people together, you hound them, and you get people together until they leave, telling them they're not welcome here. And people started to do it. I mean, and all this stuff about we're all Nazis and all that kind of stuff. They should look back at what real Nazis did to the Jews back in the 30s. I mean...
Well, you nailed it. Tim, on every point, you nailed it. And look, that's why it's beyond disgusting to compare, frankly, anyone to Hitler. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quickly. This is from Susie on Messenger. Jeff, the Dallas ICE shooter, Joshua John's mom, is a vocal liberal activist. Yes, I talked about that earlier, Susie. A hardcore Democrat. And I got to tell you, virulently anti-ICE and anti-Trump and anti-conservative. And then she goes on to say that the shooter's Facebook page has the cover photos of his Facebook page have, or at least had, Antifa. I think they've taken down the Facebook page. But before they took it down, it had Antifa all over it. It also had communist pictures and photos. And Susie goes on to say, but he was, according to the media, registered as an independent and was some kind of a Boy Scout. He was definitely groomed by his mom, the Democrats, their constant BS, and, of course, the deep state. And for that, he is dead. No, I said this earlier. This has Antifa written all over it. There's no question. And also what's changed. Now, we talked about Obama and what he did to the Democratic Party. Black Lives Matter. George Floyd, the so-called Summer of Love. They unleashed left-wing terrorism, that's what it was, across the entire country. And that's when Antifa was born as well. It was actually born under Trump, but that's when Antifa really came into its own. So, you know, the left now unleashed terror through their shock troops. And their shock troops are Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And this audience, all of you, you were the ones who said it. Antifa and Black Lives Matter are going to haunt this country for years to come. And instead of getting better, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Okay, very, very quickly. Listen now to Ted Cruz. Okay, Senator from Texas. Now remember, it was Senator Ted Cruz. It was Senator Rand Paul. It was Mitch the Squish McConnell. It was Candace Owens. It was Ben Shapiro. They were the ones who lined up one after another to defend Jimmy Kimmel, to insist that Jimmy Kimmel be put back on the air. Because apparently Disney firing him was a violation of his First Amendment rights. It was against free speech. This is FCC fascism. So, okay, they wanted Jimmy Kimmel back on the air. They got Jimmy Kimmel back on the air. And now, a day later, when it's exactly that kind of hatred and vitriol and poison that Jimmy and his ilk have been peddling for God knows how many years, we end up now, by the way, for 3,000 shows. Correct me if I'm wrong, or 3,000 hours, my bad. For 3,000 hours that he was on the air, he only had one Republican. Only one. Only one, and that was a never-Trumper. It is a 24-hour hate fest. That's what his show essentially is. It's just every show, all day, all night, it doesn't matter. Before he's on the air, after he's on the air, on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, it doesn't matter. It's hatred for Trump, hatred for MAGA, hatred for ICE. But no, you wanted him back, Teddy. So Ted Cruz wanted him back, you got him back. So listen now to Ted Cruz at the press conference yesterday in Dallas. Roll cut 2, Mike.
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop.
And what are you going to do about it? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Of course it must stop. You're right. But what are you doing about it? Outside of flapping your mouth up and down, what are you doing about it? He continues. Roll cut to A, Mike.
To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other.
He's right. Again, he's right. In a democracy, we're a republic, but, to be technical, we're a democratic republic. Yeah, of course, disagreements are the very nature of freedom. I get it, of course. And your political opponents are not Nazis. But again, what are you going to do about it? All you do is empower the enemy. That's what you just did with Jimmy Kimmel. So you're not offering any solutions. You're just telling us we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't do it. Well, they're doing it. One last point, and this is what I find very disingenuous. Him, Rand Paul, Candace Owens, I don't care. Mitch McConnell, Ben Shapiro, all of them. I'm sick of them. Really, I'm sick of them. They keep saying stop. Please don't do it. Stop. Don't you get it through your thick head? They don't want to stop. They don't want to debate. They don't want to debate because they can't win the debate. They know they can't win the debate. So they want to shut down debate. You think they're unhappy about this? No. They just wish ICE agents were killed because they want to instill fear and terror and intimidation into ICE so they'll stop doing what they're doing. They'll stop raiding and deporting and detaining. Like, they keep acting as if the other side, there's a good faith. Okay, come on, guys. Don't you realize what you're saying is causing people to die? Please, come on, don't be naive. Stop, please stop. I'm begging you with a cherry on top. Please, please, pretty please. No. They're lying about ICE in order to foster violence. Don't you get it? agree, disagree. In other words, they're useless. I'm telling you, these Republicans are useless. They're useless. They're Vichy Republicans. You don't have the guts to stand up to the radical left. And so you have nothing to offer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Moses in Long Island. Thanks for holding, Moses, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Moses, long time, my friend. I'm so happy you called in, buddy.
Yeah, listen, I'm listening to you all the time, but you know what I'm saying? I haven't been able to call in, but you know, you're 100% right, man. Your callers are the best, and your show is the best, and that's why I'm bringing this question to your show, because I know not too many other shows would take it. Before Charlie Kirk passed away, and this all comes to a point, so give me a second. Before he passed away, as you know, he started to disagree with some of the way Israel was handling things. And one of the points he had made is the fact that a lot of Jewish foundations, a lot of Jewish people are funding a lot of the stuff that pushes this type of violence that we're seeing. I think Trump had it right, and it's not just them, so I'm not just going to point to them only, but my point is that Trump had it right in the beginning when he said they were going to go after the money, the people that are funding this type of stuff. There's a two-faced monster on this. Part of it is the teachers and schools and the teachers' unions and the stuff they push in the schools that radicalize these kids at a young age and make them think that politics is that serious, first of all, to the point where you should lose your life for it. And then the other face of that monster are the billionaires and the big-time foundations and funds that provide money to radicalize the kids in college and stuff like that. And where is this money coming from? Who is the people providing this money? That's what he had mentioned when this first happened, and I actually thought they were going to do something about it. Another thing, too, talking about Obama, was with the Smith-Mundt Act. Ever since he took that away, man, it seems like things just went upside down. And the media, like as soon as he took that away, it seems like the media just went all out on propagandizing the entire country. So what are your thoughts about that, Justin?
Moses, look, on your second point, I think you're 1,000% correct. That was one of the most destructive things Obama did. And you're right. Ever since he rescinded the Smith-Mundt Act, the media's run wild. No accountability, with impunity. Lie, propagandize. They keep going on about, misinformation, disinformation. The only ones spreading it are them, nonstop, around the clock. Really, it's becoming sickening. It's disgusting. So you're completely right. Now, look, George Soros is Jewish. Okay, I mean, I don't like to think in these terms, but yeah, he's definitely Jewish. There's no question. His son, obviously, is Jewish, but he's anti-Israel. That's why I find this whole, did Israel have anything to do with Charlie Kirk? I'm like, Kirk himself was very pro-Israel. Now, I know he had some questions about Netanyahu and the conduct of the war in Gaza near the end, but for the most part, he was a staunch supporter of Israel. So why would the Israelis, and there's no evidence that Israel was involved, but let that go. Why would the Israelis want to take out one of their top advocates in the media? So the whole theory doesn't make sense. But if you're talking about self-hating Jews, and that's really what George Soros is, this is a guy who collaborated when he was a young kid with the Nazis to exterminate fellow Jews in Hungary, to literally send them on cattle trains to death camps, to concentration camps. And then he and his father, and he's admitted this, would then go to the homes of the Jews that they, yeah, that guy's Jewish. Yeah, that family's Jewish. So the Jews that they sold out, they would go into their homes and they took their money and their jewelry and whatever they had of value. That's George Soros. And he despises Netanyahu. He despises Israel. He's rabidly pro-Palestinian. Hell, he's pro-Hamas. So, you're right. There are some very powerful Jewish billionaires on the left Soros is Exhibit A, but no, there's others. Reid Hoffman, there's others. But they're not pro-Israel. I mean, literally, just look it up. Don't even take my word for it. They want Israel wiped off the face of the earth. They're the ones funding these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protests on campus after campus after campus. Look, George Soros has said his two biggest, most favorite Democrats are AOC and Ilhan Omar. And he said, if you have to mention a third, throw in Bernie Sanders. I don't know how you get more, frankly, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, or anti-Israel than those three.